Howdy everyone and welcome to the Serial Geek TV YouTube channel. My name is James Eatock and today I present to you something special. Back in 2003 to 2006, I was a co-producer on the UK He-Man and the Masters of the Universe DVDs produced by Contender and Cheerful Scout. For one of the special features, I conducted an interview with Filmation storyboard artist and writer Robert Lamb. Well over 1.5 hours worth of footage was shot, but for the DVD I edited the interview down to roughly 40 minutes. A while back I mused that showing Rob's interview in all its glory with new accompanying visuals would be a rather wonderful addition to this channel. Fans of animation and the history of Filmation will love this, given that Rob thoroughly enjoyed his time at Filmation and had much to say. This is the third part of the interview recorded back in 2004. Enjoy!
Okay, House of Shokoti, Part 2. Prior to that, I would have to say that House of Shokoti was probably my third episode. I had done another Larry DiTillio script, The Dragon's Gift, which featured the dragon Granomir. Now, I found that I really liked Larry DiTillio's writing. He was had a wry sense of humor, has a good sense of fantasy, and would also had a good visual sense. Come up with good bits of business, and I just liked working on his scripts. And so when I got to got this second half of a two-parter, everybody wanted this script because it was going to be creepy and it was going to be scary and a chance to do something different than the normal Skeletor attacks Grayskull and He-Man throws Beastman in the mud story. The two-parter was split between myself and Don Manuel. Excellent storyboard artist. When I first started with Filmation in 1981, I apprenticed under Don Manuel doing cleanups for his boards. And he had such a good command of the medium and being able to illustrate very efficiently in these very small panels. And he had a very good dramatic sense. And so it was going to be a good match. Don did the first half of the two-parter, and I did the second half. Primarily, I went through the entire board, entire script, and boarded it out roughly. And then afterwards, I think Don finished before I did. He got started before I did, and he came in and assisted in doing cleanups of my work. And when you look at the board, there's about 4 or 5 different styles in there because of revisions and other people doing revisions. So He-Man looks different in one section than another section, and Stanlin looks different, and Malactha looks different, and Shokoti looks different. And so it just depends on who was drawing them at the time. House of Shokoti Part 2 were just an excellent script. And Larry had outdone himself. He'd come up with a menacing character, a creepy place and situation, and he had set up the scenes and actions to emphasize that. One of my favorite things was what he did with a rather mediocre character of Ram Man. He had made him, he was a one-joke character. He would jump and bash his head into things. You only do that, what do you do with that? Well, he made him kind of a simpleton and made him funny. One of the funny bits of business that Larry gave to Ram Man was to mispronounce Shokoti's name throughout the entire episode. So he called her Shabooty, Shapoopy, Skabody, and anything he could think of, which was funny for the viewer. It was irritating for the villain.
Shokoti, you fool!
And it was really good, and I really liked that. And later on, when I got a chance to write my second script, Not So Blind, in the second season of He-Man, I put Ram Man in because of my experience with him in House of Shokoti Part 2. And I decided that Ram Man was not stupid or dumb, he was just slower than other people. And brought that bit of his character out and had some fun with him in that script.
I understand. You know, some people treat me differently because they think I'm stupid, but I'm not. I'm not stupid. No. But I am kind of slow.
One of the things that I tried to do in my storyboards was to enhance the visual experience by calling for complex camera work. Because it was less expensive to move the camera, move a couple elements of backgrounds than it was to animate things. So wherever I could, if I could improve a scene by a dramatic use of camera work, I would do that. And my inspiration for that was Japanese anime that we were starting to see in the 80s. Stuff was not seen by the general public, but there were some animators who would go over to Japan and bring back videotapes of Japanese TV shows and movies. We didn't understand what they were saying, but visually they were very rich and very inventive. And we tried to add some of those things to the stories to make them more visually interesting. So I would do pans and zooms and tilts as we pan to and multiple levels of background elements and pan them at different speeds in order to create more depth and give more mood to the scene. One scene in particular was outside the pyramid at the beginning of the show. We had Ram Man on guard, very scary, and he's talking to himself, and Stanlan comes out to see him. Stanlan wants to get inside this pyramid. This is exciting stuff. This is adventure, and he's being treated like a kid and made to wait back at the tent. But so he sneaks out at night, and he goes down to where Ram Man is, and not trying to, ends up scaring Ram Man. He shoots up and ends up on top of one of the floodlights. But there was this mask of Shokoti on the exposed doorway into the pyramid, and the eyes start glowing and music gets real scary, and tentacles come out and they grab Stanley, and he is pulled through the solid door, and try to do an extreme angle so it wasn't just straight flat on, but increase the drama by doing it at a low angle, shooting up at the thing, so it's just pulled back into the door, and he just kind of melts into it. You know, Prince Adam comes out, changes into He-Man. Battle Cat leaps at the door, claws down the door, and falls off, and the scratch marks heal up. And then He-Man takes his sword and he gives everything he's got and slices right through the center of Shokoti's face. This was horror. This was really, really hard. I didn't think it would stay. I thought I'd get some sort of comment that it was too grisly for little kids and that we couldn't have that in there. But they kept it. I got to keep my shot. And that was a way of doing something very violent and graphic, but it was a stone face, so it wasn't a real person. But yet, visually, it's just cleaving this face in two, and the door splits in half, and they have access to the pyramid. And that's just the beginning. That's just getting inside. Once inside the pyramid, it's dark, it's creepy. There's flying, slimy things, and there's this huge rats, and there's floating heads of Shokoti and all this other stuff. And a great deal of this was in Larry's script, and because it was there in the writing, I had great things to jump off from. And he had one point where Shokoti, the floating head of Shokoti, opens her mouth and He-Man walks into it. It's very very graphic visual, and there were just scores of those throughout the thing. And we really tried to keep the creepy factor up high. I was surprised at how much stayed, how much came through. There was a few things, actually most of the cuts were done for length. The show was running long, and there was a few sequences that were trimmed just because it was long. But the creepy stuff stayed. That was amazing to me. As I told you, Don Manuel did part 1. And what happened was that I would have a sequence that sounded like something in the first script. I read both scripts, and I would look at them, I wonder if Don's done anything with this sequence. And so I'd go to Don's desk, and I'd say, what have you got for Stanley? And I've got a scene that's very similar to the one you've got. And basically, I'd be Xeroxing copies. I'd make copies of his board, and I'd incorporate things that he did, and I'd make references saying, refer back to part 1 for this. And like I said, when Don finished his part, he came over and assisted me in cleaning up my drawings, my preliminary drawings. And so Don and I worked together, and then Don was the primary helper when executing supervisor and director and Hal Sutherland's revisions. So Don and I worked fairly close on the 2 episodes, although I did not do as much on his as he did on mine, because he had started before mine. I was finishing up another show. Another scene that I really liked was when Stannon is exploring the inside of the pyramid, and there's caverns and stalactites and things like that, and Shokoti's face appears hovering before him, only in shadow, indistinct, can't really get a good view of it, and it's beckoning him closer and closer, and he's got a lantern, and at a certain point he pulls the lantern up and illuminates the face, and it's not her face, it's this tentacled creature called a darkling. And ooh, they really did a job. I was amazed at what came out of the model department for this ugly, multi-mouthed, eyed, snaky thing, big glob of guts kind of monster, really disgusting. It was cool. I just thought it was really cool. We had the most disgusting looking thing. In fact, Shokoti Part 2 had an abundance of disgusting, cool things. The flying snake things, the darklings, and to the final climactic battle with the monster at the end out of the pool. The monster was really gross and really creepy. Ooh, he was gross and monstrous. So it was pretty neat stuff. I mean, Larry did a great job. He came up with some great material to board. It was a sheer joy.
Shokoti, stop it!